Now, the war has taken an unbearable toll on Gaza's children. Last month, images of a headless baby in Rafah after an Israeli airstrike shocked the world. Ahmed was just 18 months old, and he was killed when Israeli forces targeted a displacement camp filled with families. 45 people were killed. Al Jazeera spoke to Ahmed's grieving father and brothers. Camille Nedelec has their story.
A family united in grief. Huda dreamed of being a doctor. Arkan dreamed of being a pilot. At just 18 months old, Ahmed hadn't yet had a chance to dream of becoming anything. Abed al-Najjar's wife and 3 children were killed in an Israeli airstrike on a displacement camp in Rafah.
الشهداء كليتهم اللي هي زوجتي وهدى وأركان.
I saw the bodies of my wife, my daughter Huda, my son Arkan, and my baby Ahmed. I was told he was headless. I just peeked inside the body bag and saw his body without a head. I couldn't stand to see anymore. I zipped it up again and walked away.
Decapitated in the blast, Ahmed was among the 45 people killed in the attack. Many others at the camp burned alive in their tents. They had been staying in an Israeli-designated safe area. They were killed just 2 days after the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to stop its incursion into Rafah. Despite Ahmed's violent death, this is how his family tries to remember him. They've kept his toys and clothes, a source of comfort and pain.
Every time I look at my brother's belongings, I'm overwhelmed with grief. I hope to be killed so I can join him in heaven. I miss my sister and brothers. I miss them all.
I miss my mother, my sister Huda, and my 2 brothers Arkan and Ahmed. I wish they'd never been killed. I miss them too much.
Ahmed's head was never found, and his family were forced to bury him without it. His grave is next to his mother and siblings in the ruins of Gaza. Camille Nedelec, Al Jazeera.
Incredibly difficult to watch. Saleem Oweis is spokesperson at UNICEF's Middle East and North Africa office, and he joins us now live from Amman. I mean, these lives cut short in the most tragic of ways. The image of baby Ahmed, a devastating image of the horror that is this war. How does a family, and especially surviving children, the siblings, for instance, of Ahmed, faced with this unimaginable trauma, deal with this?
Well, this is a big question, and I think this is just unfortunately one of the many stories in Gaza right now of children forced to deal with a horrific reality of loss, of trauma, of total destruction, and the whole story is even darker than what we see because it runs deeper as they grow up. Unfortunately, this war has a profound impact on their psychological wellness. And what we know is before the war started, before the latest escalation started, before 7th of October, there were around 500,000 children in the Gaza Strip who needed some kind of mental health support. Now we know that all of the children in Gaza need that support and need specialized support in many cases. So this is really hard to deal with. The problem now is the services that are on the ground are almost non-existent. We're talking about the only psychological psychiatric hospital in Gaza has been out of service early on in this escalation, and that means that the basic needs of mental health can't be met. Also for children, as long as they are continuing to witness what they're witnessing, as long as they continue to experience what they're experiencing, it's really hard to deal with the trauma. The first 8 principles of trauma is to remove the person from the environment of the trauma. That's that's impossible in Gaza. There's no safe place in Gaza, and
Right.
there's no there's no place that feels safe.
Right. There is no escaping the chronic sense of insecurity, displacement, death, and destruction. And I think what was really difficult to hear in that report, that package that we just played, is Ahmed's, the 18-year-old baby's brother, basically saying, you know, I'd rather die so that I can meet him again. I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, how entrenched is this trauma, and how do you see this generation growing up?
Well, I don't want to lose hope, but what we're seeing is really drastic, and this is something that we have rarely, if ever, seen. The amount, the frequency, the extreme levels of this trauma is unprecedented, almost. And that quote of the brother, "I'd rather die," is just a testimony of how deep that goes. And we have a helpline that's running in Gaza for whoever wants to talk about their mental health, which receives a lot of calls each week. And the parents come, and one of the quotes that I have heard is the parents are really struggling because they say, we can't even hold the children to tell them they are safe now, because both we and them know that we are not safe. So when you can't even hold your child and tell them it's going to be all right, what kind of support can you give? Really, parents are facing a horrible and horrific reality, and they're being put in this very difficult position where they themselves can't reassure their children.
Now, the El Najjar family's experience of loss, as you outlined as well, is being repeated across Gaza. Have we seen an uptake or a trend towards children, just not wanting to live anymore, just simply they can't deal with the situation?
Yes, and I think we've heard a lot of those stories, but also we've heard a lot of children who can't deal with the reality. They can't even express what they want or what they don't want. We've heard from colleagues, from people on the ground, from our missions on the ground, that children withdrew, children stopped expressing themselves, or even some of them can't speak anymore. They're wetting their beds at night. There's a lot of self-harming happening. There's a lot of not willing to eat or drink. So there's a lot of symptoms that we are seeing. A lot of, if you may, a lost interest in life, which is really what kind of not wanting to live is, even if they don't express it. And the longer this trauma continues, the longer and the harder treatment and dealing with these traumas will be. That's why it's really imperative now to have a ceasefire. It's really imperative to have aid and services at scale going to these children to help, and in hopes to alleviate a little bit of that trauma and hopefully make room for recovery in the future.
This is not how childhood should be. Saleem Oweis, the spokesperson at UNICEF's Middle East and North Africa office. Thank you so much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.